The Rams and Broncos went from being the probable Super Bowl matchup to now having a lot of questions on them. Welcome back to No Huddle and welcome to my Week 16 NFL review. Tons of games that switched up a lot of the playoff pictures. A lot of teams clinched, some teams bounced out. Just a lot to uncover, so let's just get going. Starting with Thursday Night Football, we got the Seahawks beating the Rams 38-37 in what was probably maybe the game of the year, unless you include the Week 1 game with Buffalo and Baltimore, because this game was absolutely insane. The Rams started out absolutely firing. They jumped out to a 16-point lead, but we all know that the action kind of got to the end. The Seahawks returned a punt for a touchdown. They converted on a touchdown and two-point conversion on some controversial actions by the officiating. They're kind of a big protagonist this season. Or this week. And overall, the Seahawks were chasing the game the entire time, but thanks to that two-point conversion, they were able to tie it. The Rams ended up missing the field goal, but thanks to them scoring first in overtime, they still had a 7-point lead, but then their defense broke down. JSN had an insane touchdown grab, and then they ended up winning off a two-point conversion at the very end of the game. Absolutely insane game. This switched up the playoff picture a lot because now the Seahawks control the 1 seed. Meanwhile, the Rams, after this week, they fell to the 6 seed. I still think they're fine, but it's just a huge blow to a run that seemed to be a lot easier. Now they're going to have to go on the road more. We'll see if they're able to rally. But yeah, this game was absolutely insane. I hope we get some of these matchups in the playoffs because these playoffs could be absolute cinema. For me, my man of the match, it still goes to Puka Nacua. I know JSN had an insane game, but it wouldn't feel right if I gave it to Jackson Smith-Njigba, considering that if you doubled all his production, it still wouldn't be the game that Puka Nacua had. Over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. He responded. He was facing some scrutiny thanks to the stuff that he did, but he answered the call and delivered a absolutely insane performance. But it was despite the loss, so shout out to the Seahawks. Now we got Philadelphia beating the Washington Commanders to clinch the NFC East. This game was kind of close thanks to Jake Elliott missing a bunch of field goals. The Washington Commanders jumped out to a 10-7 lead, but then in the second half, Philly kind of imposed their will and were finally able to win. Again, I'm not that impressed by their offense. I am kind of impressed by Saquon Barkley because he was actually able to produce pretty well. But overall, again, the Philly offense, unless they produce against a good team, I'm still very iffy on them. But overall, shout out to them. Of course, winning the division, it's still it's very noteworthy considering this finally ends the streak of non-consecutive division winners in that division. So I think that's a good thing. And Philly, even after all these problems this season, they are in the playoffs, and it looks like they're kind of going to lock up the 3 seed. For me, my man of the match does go to Saquon Barkley because he finally had a good game. This feels like the first good game that he's had in a win since probably the Giants game that they had in week 9. It's kind of crazy. The offense also, like I said, Jalen Hurts also played well. He was feeding Brown, Smith, and Goddard pretty well. And yeah, I think Philly overall just outplayed a very inferior team, and we'll see how they fare in their next game against a more formidable foe in Buffalo. And now we got the Packers at the Bears, in which they lost 16-22 in what was another absolutely crazy game. The game started out kind of boring though, so we'll kind of skip to the final 2 minutes, in which it was 16-6. Although one noteworthy thing is that Malik Willis came in and actually produced, and he was really good. He made some absolutely great throws. He was making absolutely insane runs, and overall, it just kind of seemed like the Packers were going to win up until the Bears kicked a field goal, and then they ended up recovering an onside kick, which Romeo Doubs mishandled, and the Bears ended up getting it, and they were able to get a touchdown off a wild catch on a wide open throw. Great throw by Caleb Williams. And then they still had a chance in overtime, but then Malik Willis ended up fumbling. They went for it on 4th down, and they couldn't get it, which led to Caleb Williams throwing a walk-off touchdown. Once again, a beautiful throw by him. He absolutely bounced back well. But for the Packers, this is a very huge missed opportunity that they had. It felt like they had the game in the grasp, and I feel like they're just kicking themselves so much because if they were healthy, this game would have probably been no contest. But obviously, with the state that the Packers are, you still got to shout out the Bears with their resilience. I think they're very good this season. I believe they're the number 2 seed in the NFC right now. I believe that they're going to make, I think they're going to be very competitive in these playoffs. My man of the match for me goes to Caleb Williams. He started out very iffy. He was very inaccurate to start, but then after that, he woke up, delivered some insane throws, and this was a game that probably won them the NFC North. So just an insane game. If you haven't watched this, go watch the highlights because even though it was 22-16, it was just pure entertainment in the final couple of minutes. And now to Sunday, we got the Chargers destroying the Cowboys 34-17. I got a very special video coming up on the Cowboys, similar to what I did for the Chiefs last week. The Chargers just imposed their will the entire time. This game was it was kind of close in the first half because the Cowboys were keeping up, but they couldn't do anything to stop Justin Herbert. We should have known that stopping the Chiefs offense to an extent and stopping the Philly and the Raiders offense didn't mean that the Cowboys defense was good. They still sucked. They still let J.J. McCarthy play well. They let the Lions run all over them, and now they let the Chargers do anything they wanted. Herbert played incredible. The run game was actually really good, and Quentin Johnston had an incredible game, and Dak Prescott did everything he could, but he just couldn't do anything, even with the help of George Pickens finally bouncing back. Very good win for the Chargers, not so much for the Cowboys because they were already eliminated, but for the Chargers, they now stay within reach of the Broncos for the AFC West. They still have a puncher's chance at the 1 seed, so we'll see how that plays out. Man of the match for me goes to Justin Herbert, and I've been saying this the entire time. If the tackles were healthy, the Chargers would be so much better. They'd probably be the 1 seed in the AFC or very close to Denver at least, and Herbert will probably be in MVP conversations. But even despite that, they're still one of the best teams in the AFC. And honestly, they just joined the collection of teams where even if they're extremely battered, I do not want to see them in the playoff setting because they can easily knock you out. Now I got the Vikings beating the Giants 16-13, one of the more meaningless games outside of the tanking race. Even with J.J. McCarthy going down, they were able to lose to Max Brosmer because Jackson Dart laid an absolute egg. I guess the one positive thing from this is that Justin Jefferson actually had a good game for once. The connection with J.J. McCarthy and then Max Brosmer actually turned out to be really good. But again, they weren't really able to produce many points. This game was more about the Giants just absolutely capitulating. The Vikings defense was absolutely insane. They get my man of the match, specifically Brian Flores, because throwing for 33 yards, I get that you're a rookie and I get that the Vikings defense is good, but that's just embarrassing. Shout out to Brian Flores. I mean, nothing. This is just a very meaningless season for the Vikings. Looks like they're going to finish like 7-10 or 8-9, something along those lines. Just a dead year. Hopefully J.J. McCarthy actually plays well next season. And for the Giants, you're tanking really well right now, so just don't screw it up against the Raiders next week. Now I got the Bengals destroying the Dolphins 45-21. This game was, again, it was kind of like the Chargers and Cowboys game, but even more so, where it started out very competitive, but then after a third quarter flurry by the Bengals, specifically Chase Brown, it was pretty much never close. Joe Burrow actually played really well. He was throwing dimes. The Dolphins couldn't really do anything on offense. It was mostly just Achane trying to carry the entire offense with Quinn Ewers not doing anything. And yeah, like I said, Burrow played incredible. Chase Brown had 3 touchdowns. He probably won/lost someone their fantasy championship or their fantasy semifinals. So yeah, that's very fun. And I mean, for Burrow, I mean, he gets my man of the match here. I just hope that this performance made him so he's actually not depressed. And this season, once again, similar to the Vikings, it's just dead for the Bengals. The offseason is kind of the key aspect for the Bengals now, just making sure that they can surround Burrow with good talent and just making it so he doesn't request a trade. So we'll see how they fare. But as for these final 2 games, for both of these teams, it's not very meaningful. And now we got an actual meaningful game. We got the Panthers upsetting, quote-unquote, the Buccaneers 23-20. And what was once again another very frustrating game in this terrible, terrible division. I absolutely hate honestly, the Saints have become my favorite team in this division. That's how bad it's gotten. This game started out, I mean, it was competitive through and through. Both teams were kind of exchanging leads. Both teams couldn't really build a sizable lead on the other. The game started out, Baker Mayfield, he just hasn't been good. Ever since he was like the favorite for MVP after week 6, he's completely fallen off. I don't know if it's the injuries or it was a fluke in the first 5 weeks, but something has happened. The running game did fine with Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker getting a touchdown, but even still, Bryce Young stayed within reach, even with Mike Evans catching a touchdown. I believe that was earlier in the game, though. And then they ended up getting a game-winning drive. And then with Baker Mayfield, it seemed like he had a chance, but then he threw one of the most boneheaded interceptions I've ever seen him throw. And that's saying a lot because he's thrown a lot of interceptions in these last couple of years. But yeah, the Panthers ended up squeaking it out. And I mean, shout out to the Panthers, I guess, because it feels like this win kind of sealed that they're going to win the division, especially because I definitely do not trust Tampa to win their final 2 games, especially their final game against Carolina. But in the long term, I don't believe in any of these 2 teams to win because they're going to get absolutely destroyed by the NFC West team that's in the wild card. So, yeah, it's just they're just kind of see who can win to get blown out in the first round. Man of the match for me goes to Ted McMillan. No one really showed out in this game. I could have maybe given it to the defense, but even still, that was more just Tampa's incompetence. But Ted McMillan, it looks like he kind of wrapped up Offensive Rookie of the Year after just snatching it from Emeka Egbuka, who has not played well this season either outside of the first couple of weeks. So I hate both of these teams, but I guess shout out to the Panthers. And now I got the Saints destroying the Jets 29-6. This game, I mean, you'd think that the Saints were a playoff team with how they played against the Jets. Their running game was incredible. Tyler Shuck is looking like Drew Brees out there. Chris Olave played incredible. And the Jets, they're just a hopeless team. Like, they couldn't do anything. And a unique stat that I found, the Jets haven't intercepted a single quarterback the entire season. That's just sad. Considering they've played guys like Bryce Young, like Tyler Shuck, like, I don't even know who they played. They played Josh Allen, who is kind of turnover prone sometimes. Like, they played all these quarterbacks, and the fact that he couldn't intercept a single one, that's just embarrassing. Brady Cook was absolutely terrible. The Saints defense did a really good job of locking up. And I mean, I guess it's just good for the Saints because this is kind of just a culture win. You screwed your draft pick, so it looks like you're not really going to get a top tier pick. But I think Kellen Moore, if Tyler Shuck is the guy that's going to answer the call in the future, then I think him and Kellen Moore can actually build a nice offensive culture because this offense is actually pretty good, albeit against the Jets. My man of the match is Chris Olave. Could have given it to Tyler Shuck, but Chris Olave finally looked like his rookie form. Thank God that he got away from Derek Carr because his career looked like he was going to end short. But this performance, 10 catches, 148, and 2 touchdowns, who knows? Maybe him and Shuck can build a nice little duo next year. Now we got the Bills escaping the Browns 23-20 in a very sloppy game. Josh Allen did not play well, but hey, that's what you have your team for. James Cook and the defense showed up to help him. James Cook was absolutely incredible in this game. And again, it started out with the Bills actually winning kind of comfortably, but then Shador and company started getting closer and closer. He made some really good throws. His offensive line was not helping him at all, by the way. And then it ended up being a one-score game when Josh Allen threw a pass that should have been a touchdown, but ended up getting dropped. But then, because the offensive line did absolutely nothing, they got backed up to their own half-yard line, and then they just didn't go for it on a 4th and 32, which, I mean, I get why you didn't go for it because you're at your own half-yard line, but still, you're 3-11. You might as well go for it at that point. But the Browns dropped what I believe is like their 12th game of the season. Shador did not play great, but again, like, I'm not really going to blame him with that offensive line. It was just more so that the Bills just ended up out-talenting them, I guess, and they were just able to escape. The Bills, if they keep playing like this, they're not going to win anything meaningful because other teams aren't going to forgive Josh Allen playing that badly. But I'm just going to forgive them because the Bills usually always have these sloppy performances in the regular season. My man of the match for me, once again, goes to James Cook. Over the past couple of games, he has been the Bills' best player. I still think Josh Allen is an incredible player, but once again, James Cook is one of the most valuable pieces. That he's probably the most valuable weapon that Josh Allen has ever had because it adds an extra dimension that can kind of back up Josh Allen if he's not playing well. So shout out to James Cook and shout out to the Bills for, at least for now, staying within the Patriots' reach. Now I got the Chiefs getting blown out by the Titans 26-9. I'm going to try and keep this one brief. This game was really never close. The Titans, they looked like a playoff team in this one because the Chiefs, they rested half their roster before the Mahomes propaganda gets around. No, the Chiefs are not this bad without Mahomes. They literally sat their entire offense and their entire defense. Trust me, you were bad with Mahomes. You're terrible without him. It's the same either way. But again, shout out to the Titans, honestly. They've been playing pretty well. Cam Ward had easily the best game of his career. The offense clicked. The defense locked them up. Jeffrey Simmons had a great game. And I guess what's sad is that Gardner Minshew also almost tore his ACL, and now they're going to have to roll with whoever the third-string quarterback is. That's going to be an ugly Christmas game, by the way. And the Chiefs, they have nothing to play for. They're just playing for a higher draft pick at this point. Man of the match for me goes to Cam Ward. This might be his first man of the match of the entire year, but he played really well, had the best game of his career by far, was just throwing dimes. He was running everywhere. You can definitely see the talent there. Now I just hope that he gets a good coach in this season so that he can actually take the leap, similar to what happened with Trevor Lawrence and Caleb Williams and all those other guys who had competent coaching. So I'm praying for Cam Ward so he can get that as well. Moving on to the late slate, we got the Jaguars beating the Broncos 34-20. They thoroughly outplayed them too. The Jaguars, this was a big statement win. I called the Broncos legit last week after beating Green Bay, and I still think they are legit. This just shows that the Jaguars are very formidable in the AFC as well. Trevor Lawrence played absolutely incredible. The Broncos tried to stay there every once in a while. They tried to match the Jaguars, but it felt like they could never get a firm lead in the game. And then after the Jaguars just scored in the fourth and third quarter, the Broncos just couldn't catch up, and Bo Nix just couldn't really play hero ball again. Again, I don't think that the Broncos are that bad. It's just that Trevor Lawrence and Parker Washington just couldn't be stopped. They looked like Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill or Brady and Randy Moss. It was that crazy. I mean, I guess this might have been just a good wake up call for the Broncos. It shows that they can't just, they still have to take other teams seriously. I still think they'll be fine in the last 2 weeks. I still think they can maybe wrap up the 1 seed. This just shows that they do have to fix some things in their team. They're not absolutely perfect. Man of the match for me goes to Trevor Lawrence. He was absolutely insane over these last couple of weeks. He's been absolutely incredible. Thrown for a lot of touchdowns, hasn't thrown any interceptions, and he has played against bad teams. But this is not a bad team. Dicing up one of the best defenses in the NFL, that is very much praiseworthy. So shout out to Trevor Lawrence and shout out to Jacksonville, who once again I believe they claimed the 3 seed in the AFC, and they're playing like a top 3 seed. They're playing like a top 3 team in the NFL. Period. Now I got the Falcons beating the Cardinals 26-19. I didn't really watch much of this game. I thought the Cardinals could win, but Jacoby Brissett was kind of kept back down to earth. The Falcons offense finally responded with some of their weapons. Kirk Cousins played pretty well, and I guess the one neat thing about him is that him and Kyle Pitts seem to have a decent connection. Now, once again, the Cardinals offense couldn't really do anything thanks to some missed field goals, and once again, Marvin Harrison Jr. not doing anything. Jacoby Brissett, once again, he came back down to earth. He didn't play like Peyton Manning. Once again, he wasn't throwing for a bunch of yards, which he hasn't really done in these last couple weeks, which is kind of sad. But once again, both of these teams aren't really playing for anything, just some draft stock. As for the Falcons, it's just not giving the Rams a good pick. Man of the match for me goes to Bijan Robinson. He's one of the weapons that actually stepped up and delivered. He almost had like 200 scrimmage yards, and in a team and in a game that didn't really have many standout players, he was the one that actually shined. Now I got the Raiders almost beating the Texans 21-23. This game was way closer than it should have been. The Texans, they show that they are definitely mortal. They are not this formidable machine that's going to shut out everyone in their way. The fact that the Raiders almost beat them, of all teams, was just really funny. But Ashton Ginty finally had his coming out party. CJ Stroud did not look that great, which is a little bit alarming. If there's anything that's going to doom this Texans team, it is their offense, because it's still, even in this winning streak, it's not like it has played incredibly well. It's mostly that their defense is just great. But overall, I mean, this is just a good culture win for the Raiders, I guess. It was good that Ashton Ginty finally had a good game in the NFL. He's my man of the match despite the loss. He was incredible. He had almost 200 scrimmage yards, had an insane receiving touchdown, had an insane rushing touchdown, and overall, I think if they get him an offensive line, this is more of what we're going to see with the Raiders. Now, as for Geno and Pete Carroll and everyone else, pretty much everyone except for Brock Bowers and Ginty should leave this team. This rebuild is just very messy to start. But I mean, shout out to the Texans, I guess, but you definitely need to step up your game, because against the Chargers, against the Colts, and in the playoffs, playing like this where you almost lost to the Raiders, that is not going to cut it. And now we got the Steelers beating the Lions 29-24, one of the more insane games of the week. One game that also had the refs as protagonists. Cutting to the end, I guess we'll briefly recap the game. The Steelers actually jumped out. Their offense played really well, and their run defense was insane. I know that Jahmyr Gibbs, with his performance, he had like 3 carries for 7 yards, it felt like. He definitely lost someone their fantasy day, so shout out to anyone who lost because of Jahmyr Gibbs. And, I mean, the Steelers just stayed one step ahead because Aaron Rodgers was absolutely delivering dimes. He was throwing to Kenneth Gainwell, Jalen Warren, and DK Metcalf, who also got suspended for 2 games now because he got in an altercation with a fan. And skipping to the end, the Lions had a chance to win after the Steelers missed a field goal, and then they got called for offensive pass interference twice. Now, the first one, I definitely think it was offensive pass interference because they set up an illegal pick play. But then the second one, it seemed like Ramsey definitely exaggerated the contact, and it was very unfortunate that ended up ending the game. It would have been insane if they won off a crazy golf lateral like Seattle did with their tying 2-point conversion, but it wasn't the case. And now the Lions are staring down at the barrel of elimination. It looks like they're not going to miss the playoffs unless Green Bay pulls off a catastrophic choke, which it is possible, but it just feels like the Lions, they don't have a tiebreaker over Green Bay, which means they really need a lot of help if they want to get there. And it just kind of sucks because with this core, you wouldn't think that they're going to miss the playoffs. But for the Steelers, I guess shout out to them because that just means they pretty much locked up the AFC North with another result that we're going to talk about. And they also clinched a winning season, so I guess that's a good thing for Mike Tomlin's legacy. Man of the match for me goes to Jalen Warren, and I guess we can also throw in Kenneth Gainwell as well. They both had Kenneth Gainwell had an insane touchdown. Jalen Warren was running all over that defense, and it felt like they just had a dramatic switch where Jahmyr Gibbs and Jalen Warren, they just swapped powers because one looked like prime Barry Sanders and the other one looked like Jerome Bettis or something like that, and that one was Jahmyr Gibbs. Now to Sunday Night Football. We got the Patriots beating the Ravens 28-24 in what was a very sloppy game despite it being very competitive. Lamar Jackson, as much as I love him, he is a lot more injury prone than what we realize. He now has a back injury. It's felt like he's dealt with something literally the entire season. And in my opinion, if he's just still in pain, they just need to shut him down this season because now they're not going to do anything. Despite the Patriots turning the ball over a lot, they still couldn't manage a double-digit lead. The Ravens didn't. We have to talk about John Harbaugh, him being one of the biggest chokers in the entire NFL. I feel like that's not talked about a lot. Instead of giving the ball to Derrick Henry a lot, they kept trying to throw the ball with Tyler Huntley for some reason, and it just let Drake May get back into the game. Turnovers were the story of this entire game, whether it was the Patriots or the Ravens just fumbling everything. It was Derrick Henry or Zay Flowers or them. I think they might have missed a field. Or no, the Patriots, they ended up trying to fake punt, which also failed. That was just really weird. And overall, the Patriots, they ended up fighting back thanks to some great throws by Drake May. They took the lead, and then the Ravens just couldn't do anything after that because, once again, Tyler Huntley is not very good whatsoever. He's a fine backup to Lamar, but with how valuable Lamar is to that team, when Tyler Huntley has to step in, it's usually not a great sign. But I mean, shout out to the Patriots because they finally showed that they can win in a clutch situation. Apart from Week 5 in Buffalo, this is a good win for them to be tested before the playoffs. It looks like they're going to clinch the AFC East thanks to their final 2 games being very easy. And Drake May definitely went back into the MVP race. He gets my man of the match. Finally had a 300-yard game, and he almost hit 400 in this one. So again, shout out to him and shout out to New England. And ending the week, we got the 49ers beating the Colts 48-27. This game was actually really competitive to start. Both offenses were firing on all cylinders. It was 24-17.5. But then it just kind of turned into a case of one offense has weapons galore with CMC, George Kittle, Kendrick Bourne, Brock Purdy, and all those guys coached by Shanahan, and the other one is an offense that's deteriorating, and it's led by Phillip Rivers. And that was basically just the story. Despite the Colts scoring 27, they just couldn't really keep up, and the nail in the coffin was kind of Purdy throwing his 5th touchdown pass, and then Rivers ended up throwing a pick 6, which obviously ended the game. It's really unfortunate for the Colts because it felt like they had such a promising season, and Phillip Rivers has honestly not played that bad. It's just that the teams that they're facing are just too good. Now they're going up against Jacksonville and Houston, and it looks like they're going to lose both of those as well. It just really sucks for them. But as for the 49ers, they are a very scary team. They're now the 5 seed in the NFC, and they can maybe climb up to like the 2 or 1 seed even if they're able to win these final 2 games against the Bears and the Seahawks. If they beat both of those teams, then they might actually be the favorite because like they are insanely battle tested even with all of these injuries. My man of the match goes to Brock Purdy. It's more so just the entire 49ers offense. Kittle had an incredible game. McCaffrey played incredible. He probably won someone their fantasy game. Purdy played well outside of one interception that he had late in the game. The game was already over by then, though. And the 49ers, Shanahan, honestly, this Coach of the Year race is so tight because it's either going to be Shanahan, Liam Cohen, or Ben Johnson because all 3 of them have done absolute wonders for their respective teams. And now to end everything, we got our superlatives. My player of the week goes to Trevor Lawrence. I could have given it to someone on the 49ers. I kind of wanted to do that. Could have given it to maybe Caleb Williams. But Trevor Lawrence, dicing up one of the best defenses in the NFL. Fully healthy, mind you, just with, I think, Brandon Jones, their safety, was the only one that was out. And Trevor Lawrence completely carved them apart, threw for multiple touchdowns, ran for 1 as well, looked like the number 1 overall pick. I hope we get to see more of this Trevor Lawrence because this is a guy that actually lives up to the hype. And my Hall of Idiots goes to Mark Andrews for whatever the hell he did on that lateral, which didn't end up costing them, but it was still a stupid decision. We got the Browns offensive line for getting Shador killed. The Dallas Cowboys, because who doesn't love laughing at the Dallas Cowboys? We got Romeo Doubs, who laughed at the Bears fans all game long, only for him to bobble the onside kick. We got the Rams kicker, who ended up costing them the game late. And we got the New York Jets, one for being the New York Jets, and also for not having a defensive interception. Again, how is that even possible? How is your defense that bad? Like, Jesus Christ. Like, all of you deserve to get cut. But anyways, that is the end of my Week 16 review. We only got 2 games to go and still a lot of seedings and standing stuff to get through. So a lot of stuff will be decided in these final 2 games. But if you enjoyed this, please subscribe and please like, as any support is truly appreciated. And I'll see you guys on the next one for my special video on the Cowboys and for my predictions of Week 17.